Hey everybody, it is Elisa DiLorenzo with One Extraordinary Marriage, and I wanted to get on Periscope with you today because we got this question yesterday that I thought was so critical to be addressed. We've been talking with some folks about trust, and the question came up. Obviously, when you're talking about trust, issues of infidelity come up, issues, hello from Melbourne, issues of pornography, issues of emotional affairs and things like that. And so I really want to dig into it. I'm so glad to see that somebody said last night was awesome. They had joined us for the trust webinar that Tony and I did. I love you, but I don't trust you. And this question actually came out of that webinar. Hello again, Mrs. Zavala. So for those of you that are just joining me here on this Periscope, make sure to slide left to right, up, down, whichever way, if you're on Apple or Android, to invite your friends, because there are a lot of people that have this idea, this question of having a revenge affair. You're hurt by your spouse, and what do you do, and does it make sense? And so I want to read to you the actual question that we received that prompted this scope today. It said, I'm so angry that I want to have a revenge affair to make my husband feel as I did. I've been so tempted, but what do you think it'll do to me? Will it make me feel better? And I want to actually share the true story of a coaching client of mine. Her husband had been caught having an emotional affair that had actually been moved into a physical affair. And one of his big issues was pornography in the marriage. And so she actually stepped out and said, well, I'm going to see what this is all about. And she put herself in a position where she could actually be viewed by another man. And for those of you that are contemplating the revenge affair, I want to tell you, it will destroy you. Nothing is gained by trying to make somebody else hurt the way that you have been hurt by them. Because here's the thing, that wife, she went through this. I went through with those actions, and what happened was she felt dirty, she felt disgusting. She still couldn't understand what was it that was driving her husband, so she gained nothing by it. And when her husband found out that his actions had prompted her to then take those actions, oh my gosh, he was floored. He was sick to his stomach, actually physically ill, because his actions had prompted his wife to go out and do something that was so really degrading to her. So in answer to that question, is a revenge affair, is it worth it? What will it do to you? Well, it's going to eat you up. It's not going to make you feel any better. It's not going to solve your problems. Often it's not going to make your husband feel bad or hurt him in the same way that he hurt you. It doesn't do all of those things. Will it make you feel better? Maybe momentarily. Maybe there'll be some quick fix to it. Maybe you'll be like, oh, you know what? That was good. But like Jane Grace just said up there in the comments, it's never worth it. It's not worth it, because here's the thing. For those of you that want your marriage to work, for those of you who want to rebuild trust, and Tony and I spent 2.5 hours yesterday talking about trust to hundreds of folks on that webinar. It was one of those things that kept coming again and again. My pastor invited me to listen to your broadcast. Awesome. So glad he did. Because what we deliver here at One Extraordinary Marriage are tips and advice, information that you can take back into your marriage. And if you want to rebuild your trust, if you want to have that extraordinary marriage that I know that everybody that hops on one of our scopes does, the thing that you have to do is, like somebody said just a few seconds ago, you have to maintain your integrity. You have to do everything that is in your power to do to save your marriage. Does that mean having an affair? No, because guess what? An affair does not build your marriage, ever. An emotional affair, a physical affair, chatting online, whatever you want to call it, it is not going to help. I feel angry, but more so upset and hurt. Absolutely. And those, Ms. Zavala, what I want to say is those are normal reactions. I apologize right now for the helicopter. We're in San Diego. We get a lot of our military helicopters flying overhead. Can't always time it. But going back to the issue of the affair, those that are working to rebuild trust, each of you have to make the decisions that are in line with growing your marriage. You want to make those decisions. I said the title of this scope was, is a revenge affair worth it? Decisions that'll have a lasting impact on your marriage. The fact of the matter is, that you have to make those decisions that are going to walk in line with growing and rebuilding. Live in Florida from California. Love that. Love hearing about our California folks. Tony and I are here in San Diego, which is nice and warm right now, and beautiful sunny, so I get to do my scopes outside. But that being said, 7 months that my husband completely lost my trust. You know what? Rebuilding trust is not, it doesn't follow a timeline. It's not an instantaneous, well, I say I'm sorry, or I say, you know, I'm not going to do this again, and then, you know, poof, it's all better. That's why the revenge affair doesn't work, because it's just like a temporary, I would say it's a temporary fix, but it doesn't fix anything. So it's kind of like slapping a Band-Aid on it, or, you know, trying to like make magic out of something. The thing is that both of you have to be walking this journey to rebuilding trust. Some tips on rebuilding trust. I'm glad you asked. There's a link on the scope title, trustmeagain.com. That's the program that Tony and I put together to help folks just like us, because we've dealt with broken trust numerous times through pornography, through inappropriate relationships, friendships with members of the opposite sex, through secret spending and not disclosing that, so getting ourselves more into debt. And you know, some of the things that we've shared with other folks are, and I saw the one comment up there that just flew by saying, he keeps saying, I'm sorry. And it's one thing to say I'm sorry, it's a whole nother thing for your actions to start to walk out that you truly are remorseful, that you truly are sorry for the pain that you caused. It's possible with God. I went through the same situation. Believe me, it was not easy, but here we are. And I'm assuming when you say here we are, that you are still together. When you say that, you guys are such a blessing. We try because our mission is to impact 1 million marriages around the world. And so when you guys share, when you guys invite your friends to come onto our Periscopes, to listen to the podcast, to get connected with the different resources that we are pouring into, that's the way that you're going to help us help those 1 million couples around the world. Because think about it. When couples get healthy, when they rebuild their trust, when they do more than just say I'm sorry, but they start stepping into those actions. And I will tell you, the 2 words that, and I know we're kind of getting away from the revenge affair, but we're talking about rebuilding trust, and that's what we talk about with Trust Me Again, and trustmeagain.com is where you can find that, is that transparency and consistency are going to be your 2 best friends when you're rebuilding trust. And here's what I mean by that. Number one, the challenge that most couples face is that they haven't been transparent. There's been a disconnect. They've been keeping things to themselves. Like I said, secret spending, secret addictions. Sometimes they're not so secret. Secret relationships, all of that kind of things. You said he was listening to the webinar and bought the program, so I hope he starts showing he's sorry. Mrs. Zavala, that is a great first step, because here's what he did. He took action. Now it's going to be the second word that I mentioned, the consistency. When you are rebuilding trust, being consistent is so, so important. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say you're not going to do something, don't do it. Always put God on top of your marriage. Absolutely. Tony and I talk about that as a fundamental core belief that we hold not only within our own marriage, but also within the One Extraordinary Marriage community, that God first, and then everything else ripple effects from that. Spouse, kids, work, so on and so on. I've got the pool in the background. Imagine tossing a rock in there. What if only one of you is willing and not the one who messed up? You're not the first person that has asked that. One of the things that we share in the Trust Me Again program are specific actions that you, the one who is willing but didn't mess up, can take. And what a big part of that is creating an environment that where you are growing, where you are getting healthy. Because when you've been betrayed, there's a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of frustration. I think you guys all saw earlier, somebody mentioned anger. These are all very real and vital emotions. But you don't want to stay stuck there. I mean, face it, you know, show of hands, show of hearts. Who wants to stay stuck in a bad place? You know, I don't think any of you that are listening to this are like, oh yeah, please, me, I want to be miserable for the rest of my life. No, you don't want to be miserable. And so if only one of you is willing and it's not the one who messed up, then you know what? You've got to take care of you. You've got to take care of healing your heart. You've got to take care of doing everything that you can do to be the healthiest version of yourself. be that getting a coach, having somebody to walk you through your feelings, be it, investing in programs that allow you to understand what's going on and why that happened. There are a lot of different things. It's getting connected with a support group. There are support groups for spouses who have gone through infidelity. There are support groups for spouses who have been, I know last night on the webinar there was a woman whose husband was being treated for depression. Now we close that out, closer to that, and we do a monthly date out, no kids. One of the things I just want to say, monthly date, that is awesome, because it goes back again to the consistency, right? If trust is an issue in your marriage, then one of the things that you have to do is you have to spend time together. And in spending time together, the date nights are a part of that. Having regular conversations about more things than just, did you bring home the milk and how was your day at work? Let's face it, there's a lot that goes on in our lives, and if we don't know what's going on in our spouse's life, then guess what? We go from being this close on our wedding day, all lovey-dovey, we've got the rings on, we're doing the smiles, we're doing all this kind of stuff, to standing, and I'm actually going to pop out of the screen here, but to standing so far away that you can't even connect. He doesn't talk about anything serious. Mrs. Violet, what I would say is that the two of you may need a third party, a coach in there to help you peel back the layers. Because what we know from our own marriage and the struggles that we faced with all of our broken trust is that we have sex every day. Okay, well, you know what? That's good. That's incredible, actually, because I'm sure there are quite a few people on here that wouldn't be able to say that. But sex is just one component of the marriage. You still have to have your emotional intimacy. You have to have your recreational intimacy. You have to have your financial intimacy and your physical. All of these different intimacies matter. And if you just are focused on one, that's not a complete relationship. And that's where distance comes. That's where affairs come. That's where different pieces get broken down. We're not one-dimensional. A revenge affair would be a ticket to heartbreak, despair, and separation. Absolutely. Because, there's that saying that two wrongs don't make a right. Just because your spouse had an affair on you, and you chose to have an affair with them, not going to heal it. We tried the 7-day sex challenge. That's a whole nother Periscope, which I would love to do, and we'll dig into that on another one. But I just want to wrap up this one and saying that a revenge affair is never the answer. It doesn't make anybody feel good. It doesn't solve or fix the problems. It doesn't do what you want it to do, because the whole idea behind a revenge affair is to release this anger. And if you're not dealing with the anger, then just having sex with somebody else doesn't fix it. It doesn't, because that doesn't fix you. All that does is use somebody else and hurt somebody else. And I know that if you're on this scope, you're not on this scope because you're interested in hurting other people. You're interested in healing and helping. And in doing that in your own marriage, you make decisions that, like a few other folks said, that are based on integrity, that are based on what you know to be right, what you know to be good, and what is going to grow your marriage. So I just want to leave you again with those two words that I talked about in rebuilding trust: transparency and consistency. Like I said, they're your best friends when you're rebuilding trust. And if you want to dig deeper into trust, into getting off the emotional roller coaster that is, affairs and infidelity and pornography addiction and all of these different things, if you want to know what both of you can do, both individually and separately, the betrayer and the betrayed, I would encourage you to check out trustmeagain.com. That's where Tony and I talk about our program in depth and show you all of these different steps and all of these different pieces of information so that you can get healthy, both of you. He says, I don't want to move on. We tried counseling. Might be time to try a different coach. It might be time to, there are a lot of different things. And if you want to, hit us offline, you can send me an email at info@oneextraordinarymarriage.com, and we can chat about that offline. Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, Tony and I want you to have an extraordinary marriage. We don't want you to be slugging through the day and going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do tomorrow? How exhausting is this? Rebuild your trust now so that tomorrow and the tomorrows after that, you can wake up, look at your spouse going, look at what we've walked through and look at where we're going. Can you believe our testimony? That's where we want to take you as married couples. And so I thank you for joining me. Make sure to check out trustmeagain.com. If you want more information on One Extraordinary Marriage, you can find everything that Tony and I do at oneextraordinarymarriage.com. And we'll see you on the next scope.